Why do good leaders fall to immorality? I want to share my 3 cues to help you if you have fallen short in your leadership role to recover, to bounce back from that setback, and to establish 3 things that will help you to move forward as you continue to do the best you can with your life. And if you are new to this and you've never fallen, I want to share these 3 cues to help prevent you from falling. I subscribe to the theory known as the Bathsheba Syndrome, and it was coined by Ludwig and Longnecker, who did a fabulous job in their paper on leadership and this theory of why leaders fall. And you will be surprised, it's not what we often think. I'm going to read this summary. The Bathsheba Syndrome describes how success can corrupt powerful leaders, causing ethical failures due to complacency, privileged access, resource control, and inflated self-belief, leading them to misuse their power, much like King David in the Bible. Now, this is not a Bible study, but what I want to share with you is just some historical context so you can understand what the Bathsheba Syndrome means. And when you look at 2 Samuel chapters 11 through 12, you find a scenario where King David of ancient Israel was in his palace. Now, during this time, the Israelite army was in battle, and typical of David's behavior was that he would go to battle. What was not typical is that he was in his palace during the battle, and we'll cover that in a second. He sees Bathsheba, who was the wife of one of his soldiers who were in battle. He fell to his lust, seduced Bathsheba, impregnated her. Uriah the Hittite, who was the soldier married to Bathsheba, returns from battle. David tries to cover up his misdeed, and he encouraged Uriah to be intimate with his wife. Uriah, being disciplined, refused to do so, and now David had a dilemma. So what he did, unfortunately, he ordered Uriah to be executed by his own soldiers. Terrible situation. What do you do if you fall to corruption? So the first thing to understand is the Bathsheba Syndrome is caused by complacency. This is when you're not focused on your assignment, doing what you should be doing, following your standard protocol based on your leadership responsibilities. It is also dealing with privileged access, when you have power and access to people, processes, wealth, and control that the average person does not have access to. And of course, unrestrained control. And when you have this self-inflated belief that you can do whatever it is that you desire to do. Now, the theory of the Bathsheba Syndrome is that it's not a lack of understanding of what the standard is that causes one to fall. It is actually one not being prepared to exercise their power now that they have achieved a level of success. It's a little different than the Peter principle, and that's when a person has been successful in their previous role and they are promoted to a level in which their incompetence shows. One of my mentors says the higher the monkey goes up the pole, the more you see their behind, which is implying that you start to see their incompetence. It's a little different than that. What makes the Bathsheba Syndrome interesting is that the person who falls to immorality is actually someone who is well trained. When you look at the life of David, from his youth, he was anointed by the prophet to be the king in the future, which means that there was this divine providential narrative that was going to take place prior to him even being appointed to the role. When he gets there, he has by this time received all the training, everything he needed educationally, culturally, to do the job. However, he falls despite his high standard. So this is the case when you see a lot of media moguls, politicians, pastors, CEOs, the list goes on. You've seen it. You wonder, you scratch your head. How is it even possible that this person who is Ivy League trained would fall to this simple indiscretion? Why would they do this when they have a great family, wealth, education, culture, all the things that we describe as success? Because the Bathsheba Syndrome is addressing that one thing. They are not prepared for the success in the way that we think they should be. Hence comes the issue of morality. And what I like to focus on is the approach of having that story and training your mind to focus on that story of success even prior to reaching that level of accomplishment. And this you find as being the reason for many of the moral failures. We don't think about it. We don't prognosticate or predict, man, what will my future look like if I was successful in this area? What would happen? How would I be challenged? What would I be tempted in doing? So I want to share with you 3 cues to help you to avoid this pitfall and to recover. See, this is the thing. And again, I'm not into bashing or speaking negatively of any celebrity, leader, whomever you may be. I genuinely care about your success. I have seen some of my mentors fall who were in positions of high authority. And it made me scratch my head. Like, how is that even possible? This person is greatly successful in their area of expertise, their culture, their family. They have all the things that should prevent them from falling. However, they weren't prepared for success. And if you are early in your career, trust me, success is going to test your mettle. And it is going to catch you at a moment that you are not prepared. So I want to share with you my 3 cues. And I thought about this much. Number 1, you must stay actively engaged in your assignment. As I mentioned to you, King David was in the palace when he should have been on the battlefield. You can't allow the distractions of life, whatever your thing is, whatever you desire, whatever you enjoy, whatever you like, whatever would tempt you, you can't allow that to distract you from engaging in your assignment. You need to stay accountable to a schedule and guard against the emotional laziness that will set in, especially when you're successful. You've reached the top. You've done all these great things. It's easy to get emotionally lazy. And here's the third point about this. You must refuse isolation disguised as rest. And David, he was resting, but really he was isolated. So the first point is stay actively engaged in your assignment. The second cue is build external accountability, not just internal integrity. You have to be honest. You know your thing. Some people, it's power. Other people, it's wealth, or it's some form of pleasure that is not healthy in the wrong context. You have to know your thing. Everybody is drawn toward their thing. Let's be honest. Some people it's food, whatever the case may be. Build an accountability team. Find mentors who you can really trust, who will encourage you to do the best thing. And I want to take it a step further. Find someone who will be transparent and vulnerable about the thing that they have fallen to. And what did they do to overcome that? Now, if they have not overcome the thing that caused them to fall, they're not the best person. But I want to suggest to you, find someone who is transparent, who's willing to tell you the truth about the situation. Peer relationships that are honest and not impressed. They're honest. They're not going to be wowed by your leadership position. They're not fooled by your disguise. They know you. They're going to tell you the truth. Find that peer who's going to genuinely express to you what you need to hear but don't want to hear. They will give you straight up criticism. They will curate your behavior and recognize that you are falling prey to whatever that thing is that's not going to be good to you. And then you need to have a system. A system. What does that system look like? When do you talk to your peer? What does that schedule look like? What do you do when you rise in the morning or in the evening? What does that system look like? So, because systems help you to have a predictable outcome. Without a system, you're going to fall prey to the randomness of life. And most of the time, it's not random. But because you don't have a system, the disorganization of those things leaves you prey. And then finally, number 3, maintain a whole life of discipline, whether it's spiritual, whether it's in business, whatever the case may be. You need to be disciplined. Now, if you're married and you have a family, which hopefully you are deliberate and intentional about spending time with your family, whether it's 1 hour a day or a week, whatever the case may be, a month. Some people have theories about, if you spend X amount of time with your spouse, one doctor said if you spend 15 hours of communicating with your spouse every week, it will keep you in love with your spouse. It will keep you focused. So whatever you subscribe to, spend quality time with your family, with your spouse. If you're not married yet and you have a network of friends, spend quality time with people you can trust. Now, there's a theory about how many people you should have in your inner circle. And that theory suggests that you can maintain relationships with no more than 5 people. Well, let me just share this with you. Those 5 people, make sure they are people of high integrity. Do not just spend time with people that, yes, you enjoy recreationally, but they're not the best people morally. You get where I'm saying? There are people like that, and I'm not judging anybody. They make decisions that are not the best, but they're good people. None of us are perfect. Let's be clear. But the reality of it is that we want to be around people who will influence us to be our best. Number 2, work on your emotional health. Like, find out where you have the gaps and just be honest with yourself. If you're the type of person where you find yourself needing more emotional attention, then find healthy solutions. Do what you need to do to receive the attention that will keep you focused on the right type of relationship. Your emotional health is important. This is why you have to pay attention to the type of relationships you have, because there are people who will take advantage of you, who will see those gaps and misuse you. You have to be careful. Be honest. I always say this. Find someone who is qualified, a licensed therapist, counselor, who possess the credentials to help you to deal with your emotional health properly. And then, if you're religious, pray. If you're not, meditate and focus on the principle. I'm religious. I think that it's important for you to always spend time with a higher power to keep your mind focused on elevating your life, being more than just someone who consumes or who works hard or someone who is just trying to acquire things. Your life is more than just about making a living. It's about making a life, and you should be making your best life out of what you have. And your best life should be defined by your standards of morality and principles, which are universal, because you're not just here for yourself. You are also here for other people, and you want to help make contributions to this world to make the lives of others better. This is why great leaders, good people, fall prey. It's not because of a lack of a standard. It's because of not being prepared for the success which demands so much of you. I'm Stephen Garner, the Resilient Life Expert. Take your cues from me and live a great life. Next